Right now, behind locked doors in Green Bay, Detroit, and Minnesota, professional personnel directors are pausing preseason all 22 film in total disbelief as undrafted rookie number 91 Jayden Loving routinely steamrolls starting caliber interior linemen and blows up double teams before play-action concepts can even develop. What NFC North rivals banked on being a glaring weakness in Chicago's front seven has suddenly mutated into a nightmare interior wrecking ball that destroys pocket-stepping lanes, flings elite quarterbacks directly into edge rushers Montez Sweat and Austin Booker, and forces every division opponent to completely tear up and rewrite their protection schemes. The ambient glow of high-definition monitors cuts through the darkened war rooms of division foes, casting a harsh blue light over veteran scouts who have spent decades identifying the fatal flaws in rival rosters. Yet, as the tape rewinds and plays on a relentless, agonizing loop, the expected vulnerability simply refuses to appear. In its place sits a terrifying anomaly, an unheralded rookie whose presence threatens to upend the delicate balance of power in one of football's most brutal divisions. The scene repeating across these front office sanctuaries is as identical as it is alarming. A lead scout taps a spacebar, pausing the footage precise frames before the snap. On screen, the digital crosshairs zoom in on the zero technique alignment, hovering over a muscular frame bearing number 91. The play initiates, and within 0.3 of a second, the projected game plan of an opposing offensive coordinator disintegrates into complete chaos. Instead of a standard rookie getting washed down the line by a tandem block, number 91 fires out of his stance with low, violent leverage. He splits a double team comprised of a multi-million-dollar starting guard and a battle-tested center, using an unteachable combination of raw upper body power and explosive hip roll to violently shed the interior wall. Before the opposing quarterback can finish his drop back to scan the secondary, the pocket has already collapsed inward, driving a 220-pound passer into a frantic scramble for survival. In Green Bay, offensive line coaches rewatch the sequence with an unsettling sense of urgency. The Packers' entire offensive methodology relies on precise rhythm, quick timing reads, and clean interior pockets that allow their quarterback to step directly into throws without fear of immediate central pressure. Seeing an undrafted free agent single-handedly breach that pocket within 2 steps off the ball converts an off-season assumption into an operational crisis. For months, the consensus narrative across the upper Midwest was that Chicago's defense, while formidable on the edges, carried a soft, exploitable belly through the middle that could be systematically pounded in the run game and picked apart on play-action rollouts. Loving's tape aggressively detonates that comforting assumption, proving that the supposed weak link is instead forged from tempered steel. Up in Detroit, the reaction is equally intense, as personnel executives scrub through every single snap of Chicago's preseason slate to find an answer. They analyze his hand placement, searching for a technical flaw, a lazy stance, or a telltale sign of conditioning fatigue that can be targeted during a grueling 4-quarter division battle. Instead, they witness a relentless high-motor defender who plays with a terrifying edge, treating every exhibition snap like a high-stakes postseason showdown. When teams attempt to counter his speed by assigning heavy anchor-first guards to body him up, Loving counters with a devastating swim move that leaves seasoned interior blockers grasping at thin air. The tape shows starting caliber linemen staggering backward, their footwork completely ruined by the sheer force of his initial shock at the point of attack. In Minnesota, analysts meticulously record the statistical impact of his presence on the field, watching the down and distance success rates plummet the moment number 91 steps onto the gridiron. The realization dawns that Chicago's defensive front has quietly evolved from a work in progress into a multi-headed monster. What was originally projected to be a manageable rotational matchup has transformed into a high-priority strategic threat that will demand dedicated double teams and custom slide protections. Every division rival now understands that failing to account for this undrafted phenom will not just cost them yards or downs, it will cost them their quarterback's health, their offensive balance, and ultimately control of the NFC North. The video screens flicker off, leaving the scouts in silence, forced to accept that Chicago's defensive interior is no longer a target to exploit, but a storm they must somehow learn to survive. To truly comprehend why division rivals are panicking over Jayden Loving, one must bypass the narrative headlines and dive deep into the raw, uncompromising data of his biometrics and mechanical film. Standing at a dense, compact 6'1" and weighing a heavily muscled 309 pounds, Loving possesses a physical profile that inherently breaks standard defensive line evaluation metrics. Standard NFL interior linemen at 300+ pounds typically trade explosive lateral mobility for static, run-plugging mass, but Loving defies this classic trade-off entirely. His pro day testing yielded an astonishing relative athletic profile, highlighted by an elite 4.72 40-yard dash that puts him in an absurdly rare percentile for interior defenders. When scouts freeze frame his stance prior to the snap, they see an athlete whose center of gravity sits significantly lower than the towering 6'4" guards and centers attempting to anchor against him, giving him a built-in biomechanical advantage before the ball is even snapped. The true nightmare for opposing offensive coordinators unfolds in the first 10 inches of his get-off speed. Film analysis reveals that Loving's reaction time off the referee's whistle operates on a near-instinctive twitch fiber frequency, allowing his first foot to hit the turf while opposing guards are still just beginning to lift their weight out of their three-point stances. This microsecond explosion creates immediate vertical push directly into the B-gap, completely disrupting the geometric angles required for proper offensive line zone blocking. Because he fires out so low to the ground, his pads remain perfectly parallel to the field, making it virtually impossible for blockers to establish a clean, full palm strike on his chest plate. Instead of catching opposing hands, Loving routinely slaps away the punch with a violent, authoritative club swim maneuver, converting his initial lateral quickness into instant, straight-line power. Mechanically, Loving's leverage is a masterclass in kinetic energy transfer. Weighing 309 pounds is one thing, but utilizing every single ounce of that weight through correct hip hinge ankle flexion is what transforms a player from a mere athlete into a wrecking ball in the trench. When shooting the B-gap, he drives through his lower half with violent hip extension, planting his inside foot firmly between the guard and tackle to establish total leverage control. Because he sits below the high hand placements of taller NFL guards, he forces those interior blockers to bend at the waist rather than sink their hips, completely destroying their ability to establish a firm anchor. The moment an interior blocker loses that lower body anchor, Loving shifts his weight, using his core torque to vault past their shoulder, leaving the guard chasing air as he penetrates into the backfield. This instant interior penetration creates a catastrophic chain reaction for play-action pass concepts. Play-action schemes rely entirely on timing, deception, and the illusion of a handoff, which requires the offensive line to simulate a hard run block for a full step or two while the quarterback executes a slow, methodical mesh point fake. However, Loving's get-off is so overwhelmingly rapid that he routinely penetrates 2 yards deep into the backfield before the quarterback can even pull the ball back out of the running back's stomach. The play-action concept is instantly dead on arrival. There is no time for deep routes to develop downfield, no time for double move double teams to clear the secondary, and no time for the passer to go through a standard 3-step progression. By neutralizing the play-action game at its literal point of origin, Loving forces opposing offenses to become entirely predictable, stripping away their ability to manipulate linebackers with bootlegs or rollouts. Furthermore, his elite lateral agility allows him to redirect his 300-pound frame on a dime, making him practically immune to basic trap plays, draw schemes, or screen passes designed to punish over-aggressive pass rushers. When offensive lines attempt to use his forward momentum against him with a delay or screen, Loving demonstrates exceptional short area quickness, planting his outside foot, absorbing contact, and instantly reclosing the space toward the ball carrier. His biometrics don't just reflect raw, unrefined strength, they reflect functional, lightning-fast kinetic explosion that systematically dismantles the spatial mechanics of modern offensive line play. Analysts and offensive line coaches scrubbing this tape are forced to confront a terrifying reality. They aren't looking at an unpolished project who needs years in an NFL weight room, but a ready-made biomechanical anomaly whose leverage, agility, and sheer physical power make him an immediate, game-altering force in the middle of Chicago's front seven. This spatial collapse triggers a profound tactical dilemma for quarterbacks operating across the NFC North, where the dominant passing philosophies depend heavily on a clean, structural launchpad inside the pocket. Modern elite passers, whether dissecting coverages from the gun or dropping back in traditional timing concepts, rely on a fundamental pocket mechanic known as the step-up. As elite edge rushers bend around the tackle's outside shoulder, a quarterback's natural survival instinct, paired with standard mechanical technique, dictates taking two calm steps forward into the interior pocket crease to deliver deep downfield strikes. However, when Jayden Loving routinely collapses that exact interior crease before the edge rush even reaches its peak depth, the entire mechanical chain of the opposing passing game snaps in two. The comfortable step-up landing zone simply vanishes, replaced by a wall of 309-pound forward pressure pushing directly into the signal caller's front chest. The immediate consequence of this interior destruction is that opposing passers are denied the time and space required to let vertical routes develop. When a quarterback cannot step into his throw, he is forced to launch passes using purely upper body torque, resulting in off-platform throws, floating air balls, and severely diminished velocity on outer third-out routes. More critically, the psychological toll of consistent interior pressure disrupts a quarterback's internal clock. Rather than scanning through secondary and tertiary progressions downfield, the passer's eyes drop down to monitor the rapidly collapsing guard center gap. The moment a quarterback starts reading the pass rush instead of reading the coverage, the defense has already won the down, converting explosive downfield aerial attacks into checked down throwaways or desperate low percentage scrambles. This interior chaos creates a lethal force multiplier effect for Chicago's perimeter pass rush, transforming edge defenders Montez and Austin Booker into absolute game wreckers. In a standard defensive front, edge rushers face a constant battle against tackle set points and quarterback depth. If an edge rusher takes a wide arc around the tackle, a quarterback can easily step up 3 feet into the pocket and throw over the top of the rush. But with Loving violently occupying that step-up lane, the quarterback is trapped in a fatal geographic enclosure. He cannot step forward into Loving's collapse, nor can he sit stagnant as the edge rush closes in from behind. Attempting to drift laterally away from Loving's B-gap penetration sends the quarterback flushing directly into the waiting arms of Sweat or Booker, who are closing the pocket walls like a pair of tightening vice grips. The synergy between Loving's interior push and Chicago's edge threats exposes a fundamental flaw in traditional protection schemes. Offenses can typically manipulate edge rushers by utilizing tight end chips, running back check and releases, or tackle wide sets. Yet none of those auxiliary blocking tools can mitigate a defensive tackle who instantly breaches the interior guard gap in less than 1.5 seconds. The running back cannot block Loving in the hole without giving up 50 pounds of raw power, and shifting a tight end inside destroys the offense's pass-catching spacing across the formation. The QB dilemma becomes total: surrender immediate interior sacks by holding the ball, or throw early into tight coverage of an unbalanced back foot platform while being violently driven into the turf. Ultimately, Loving's presence transforms what used to be calculated offensive rhythm into sheer survival mode. NFC North quarterbacks are accustomed to dictating coverage terms, using pre-snap motion to find single coverage and stepping into deep post or seam routes with pristine footwork. Loving strips away that luxury, reducing multi-million-dollar offensive systems to chaotic, improvised scramble drills. By forcing QBs out of their preferred throwing platforms and directly into the path of Chicago's relentless edge rushers, this undrafted rookie ensures that every dropback against the Bears' front seven carries a high-voltage threat of an immediate turnover or a drive-ending sack. The realization that an undrafted rookie defensive tackle has compromised their game plans is driving an unprecedented level of strategic panic across NFC North scouting rooms and offensive coaching staff. Historically, NFL offensive line coaches map out protection schemes based on a clear hierarchy of threats, allocating double teams and slide protection heavily toward proven big money edge rushers or blue chip interior disruptors. When reviewing standard film against four-man fronts, a center and guard duo typically slides toward the most dangerous interior pass rusher or provides help to a tackle facing a marquee edge threat. Jayden Loving's explosive arrival completely shatters those foundational protection rules. Because he routinely destroys single coverage at the point of attack, offensive coordinators can no longer leave their starting guards on an island against him without risking instant interior pocket collapse. This forces opposing callers to allocate a mandatory two-man sliding block toward number 91 on virtually every dropback passing down. This structural adjustment creates an agonizing arithmetic dilemma that leaves division offensive coordinators in a perpetual state of tactical checkmate. In football blocking geometry, there are only 5 offensive linemen available to protect against a four-man defensive front. If an offense commits both its center and strong side guard to neutralize Loving inside, they immediately deplete the blocking resources available on the perimeter. Sliding the center toward Loving leaves the opposite guard completely isolated against Chicago's secondary interior rushers, while simultaneously forcing offensive tackles into naked single coverage matchups against edge titans, Montez and Austin Booker. Offensive coordinators are essentially forced to poison their own well, double-team the undrafted phenom in the middle and get systematically eaten alive on the edges, or single-block the rookie and watch their quarterback get driven into the turf from the inside out. The ripple effects of this strategic panic extend far beyond simple 5-man protection assignments, systematically gutting the flexibility of opposing passing concepts. To protect their tackles from single coverage against Sweat and Booker, offensive schemes are forced to keep tight ends into chip or assign running backs as pass blocking anchors. However, keeping 6 or 7 players in pass protection deprives the offense of immediate receiving options in the route tree. Instead of deploying 5 receiver route spreads that stress Chicago's secondary across all field zones, rival offenses are forced into heavy maximum protection packages that send only 2 or 3 receivers into the pattern. Chicago's defensive coordinator can then drop 7 or 8 defenders into coverage, cluttering throwing lanes and making downfield completions virtually impossible. Loving's individual dominance inside effectively strips away the opponent's ability to run high-powered multi-receiver passing attacks before the ball is even snapped. This tactical gridlock is currently dominating midnight film sessions from Green Bay to Detroit, where rival staffs are desperately attempting to engineer emergency counters. Analysts are experimenting on digital whiteboards with unorthodox protection tweaks, trying quick-hitting screen passes, draw plays, or moving the pocket entirely via sprintouts. Yet each of these band-aid solutions comes with severe operational trade-offs that play directly into the hands of Chicago's defense. Moving the quarterback out of the pocket cuts the field in half and eliminates whole field reads, allowing linebackers to trigger downhill at full speed. Screen passes fail because Loving's rare 4.72 speed and lateral agility allow him to diagnose and chase down screen plays from behind with terrifying quickness. What began as a standard preseason tape evaluation has escalated into a full-scale crisis management effort across the entire division, as every coaching staff in the NFC North confronts the stark, uncomfortable truth that a former undrafted free agent now dictates how they must construct their entire offensive universe. The emergence of Jayden Loving as an unstoppable interior force isn't an isolated stroke of luck. It represents a triumphant validation of general manager Ryan Poles' modern roster-building ethos. When Chicago opted to pass on Loving during the 7 rounds of the NFL draft, the front office wasn't ignoring his tape, they were executing a calculated evaluation strategy rooted in advanced RAS modeling, deep traits-based scouting, and patience. In an era where many front offices get blinded by pristine pedigree or polished collegiate production against lower competition, Poles and his scouting department prioritized unteachable physical traits, elite kinetic transfer, raw, lower body flexibility, and a sub 4.75 burst at over 300 pounds. By identifying Loving's unique athletic ceiling early and securing him as an undrafted free agent, Chicago executed one of the most remarkable value heists in recent franchise history, acquiring a high-caliber interior disruptor without expending a single draft asset. This acquisition philosophy highlights a broader evolution in how the Bears identify and cultivate defensive line talent. Historically, teams spent premium first-round picks searching for monstrous 320-pound nose tackles designed primarily to absorb contact and occupy space. Poles, however, recognized that the modern, passing-dominated NFL demands interior defenders who operate as dynamic playmakers rather than passive space eaters. Loving embodies this structural paradigm shift. His ability to shoot gaps, collapse pockets, and chase down ball carriers from sideline to sideline gives Chicago a versatile weapon capable of anchoring both run-heavy sets and high-leverage passing situations. By building a front seven around lightning-quick athletic disruptors rather than traditional lumbering anchors, Chicago has effectively modernized its defensive philosophy to counter the fast-paced, high-powered offenses dominating the current NFL landscape. What NFC North rivals are witnessing on Loving's preseason tape is no mere flash-in-the-pan preseason fluke. It is the opening chapter of a long-term structural shift in how Chicago controls the line of scrimmage. Flukes happen when a defender lucks into unblocked sacks or relies on broken play design. Loving's dominance, by contrast, is rooted in repeatable mechanical superiority. When a defensive tackle consistently wins with low pad level, violent hand placement, and explosive B-gap penetration against starting caliber NFL interior linemen, that success directly translates to meaningful regular season football. As Loving continues to refine his technique and absorb professional coaching, his impact will only multiply, cementing his place as a core foundation piece alongside Montez Sweat and Austin Booker in Chicago's pass rush apparatus for years to come. Ultimately, Jayden Loving's meteoric rise from unheralded rookie to division-wide nightmare sends a clear, intimidating message across the entire NFC North. The days of opposing offensive coordinators viewing Chicago's interior front as an exploitable soft spot are officially over. By uncovering an elite, game-disrupting talent on the undrafted free agent market, the Bears have not only solidified their defensive front seven, but they have also destabilized the offensive game plans of Green Bay, Detroit, and Minnesota before a single regular season snap has even been played. As division rivals scramble to redesign their protection schemes and account for number 91, one fact becomes undeniably clear. Chicago didn't just sign an athletic prospect, they uncovered a game-changing interior monster whose tape will haunt opposing scouting rooms for the foreseeable future.